So I just want to say I'm really proud of Cleveland and of Charles Ramsey for rescuing those that entire family, those three girls, their children. I don't know how many children were involved from those kidnappers. I don't know what you would call them: kidnappers, rapists, sadomasochists. Just horrible, the horrible situation that surrounded the kidnapping of those girls, and for this man for rescuing them. Now, I do think that his bombastic way of expressing himself is important for us to look at America generally, and at this historical moment. We have to also look at it in historical context. You know, black people have been entertaining the white masses and have been helping white people laugh at themselves um, since we have interacted, I would say. The earliest recorded images of this would have to be the minstrel shows and everything that led up to that. You know, people actually putting on blackface in order to see themselves. I think it is a kind of clowning. And I think clowning is a good metaphor. We like to see this Charles Ramsey as someone who was just clowning, who was just talking. Oh, you know, he just said, you know, I knew someone was, you know, the dead giveaway. A little pretty white girl run into a black man's arms for help. It had to be something really wrong. And the fact is, this is a great example for how white America tries to appropriate blackness, what it imagines blackness to be. Because just the very way that we talk has given rise to the rhythms that we have in what we call popular music in America. So the fact that, you know, Elvis Presley was copying, you know, Jackie Wilson, the fact that Madonna was copying R&B artists, I think is the fact that you listen to even just the singers today. I mean, there's one song that Rihanna has, and just the way that she says the lyrics, they only fit with this sort of black English, you know. We gonna do this, we gonna do, you know, all the kind of, you know, Ebonics kind of English, that you couldn't even fit the lyrics with the rhythm of we are going to become this, yeah, you would have to say it in black English for it to rhyme. I think this is one of the areas where so-called non-standard English has appealed to the mainstream. But then there's this idea of bluntness, this idea of an aspect of blackness that I like to call, that Cornel West calls the tragic comic. You know, the of the blues people. You know, in order to deal with tragedy, we bring it out through comedy, so you can laugh through your tears. You can turn your tears of pain into tears of laughter. And I think that's certainly what the slaves were doing on the Sundays when they were able to meet on the plantations. It's plantation politics. Of creating joy, of this sense of fullness, is what people do in churches every, you know, when they come to meet in black churches. It is a form of black spirituality, you know, whatever religion you put it on. And so this you know, intense commentary, um, but said in a playful but meaningful way, I think is characteristic of black English. And I think it's also what's quite appealing for mainstream viewers, is that, you know, polite culture dictates that you can have this. So the only place that people are accustomed to seeing this kind of commentary are comedic griots, you know, Dave Chappelle, Richard Pryor. So you can see a Dave Chappelle giving an interview, you know, Dave Chappelle in character giving an interview like Charles Ramsey, you know, and the fact that it's been auto-tuned again. I mean, and you know, Antoine Dobson, you know, hide your kids, hide your wife, and that woman. Oh my Lord Jesus, there's a fire. You know, these are people who are dealing with serious tragedy. You know, Antoine Dodson was saving his sister from being raped. Charles Ramsey was saving these little sisters from a lifetime of slavery. The other one was running from a burning house. I mean, these are traumas that I think everyone can understand. But the way that they dealt with it, you know, it's not that Antoine Dodson was laughing or thought it was cute or funny that he was able to make rhyme out of unreason. Um, what is painful, of course, and why we're all talking about this now, is that in the process of appropriation, of forcing what feels, you know, from this side of erasing blackness, you know, we have to be funny characters. We have to be, you know, laughable, not serious. Um, that blackness is itself a joke. It's a kind of forcing us to erase blackness in order to just get by. Um, there's this unsatiable palette for blackness in the dominant culture. And what's ironic about it is that just put it this way. Even Michelle and Barack can have the kind of conversations that Anton Dodson might have. And so while we like to think that, these are lower class black people, and it's another way that we dismiss them, I think it really scares a lot of people that whites would associate educated blacks like me with that kind of language. Now, mind you, I have plenty of relatives who speak, might even look just like, Anton Dodson could be my cousin. Charles Ramsey could be my uncle. I have an aunt who would say something like, oh my Lord Jesus, there's a fire, and plenty of relatives, and because I see them as full of people, I know that's not funny, it's not a joke. But I also know that the way that they talk about it is also, in our cultural context, a way of dealing with it, a way of comprehending it and healing it. And so that's the last message that I want to get through to people, is that Charles Ramsey's comments, on the Anderson Cooper interview, there's reward money, give it to them. Those girls need to heal, and his comment that made the initial interviewer so uncomfortable that he actually cut him off. He's like, this little pretty white girl running over here, like that kind of, to be able to think and talk about race in a way that PC culture, polite culture, runs away from, is also a great cultural rift. Now, the fact that black people have dealt with this often by assimilating, by speaking standard English in mixed spaces, by avoiding talking about race. I mean, you have people like Obama, but, black workers trying to make it in the white world every day who will go to work and never speak about race. People talk about Obama, he never talks about race. Well, what meaningful can he say about race in mixed company where, just like that reporter, you're actually shut down at the mere mention of it? So, and that's the starting point, the kinds of conversations that we need to have, again, represented in how Mr. Obama handled it during the speech on race during his initial campaign, was just give a half-hour speech. A half-hour unbroken, beautifully told narrative that explains where he is, because the ideas about race are so complex that, when Charles Ramsey says a pretty little white girl running into a black man's arms for help, is a dead giveaway, that the dominant culture might not have any language to speak about it. Even raising the issue would make, people so uncomfortable to think like that we simply don't do it. And I think that we've been disingenuous in that way. So moving forward, certainly we all have to make the effort to speak and hear what might be uncomfortable. And if we have to do so through comedy, so be it. But these incidences help us to do it. So listen to the Autotune remix and think about why it is that's so appealing to youth. Listen to the Autotune remix, and if that helps you, like a Hooked on Phonics thing, listen to what he's saying. Listen to who he is. Think about that critically in your own spaces.